Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing an updated profile of my Resonator Red Dragon Archfiend deck profile. Now, I did it not too long ago, but when I did it last, I was playing the gadgets as a level 4 engine to help go into things like your Red Rising Dragon. I had some interesting comments about cards like Burning Soul and Synchro Call, which I looked into and I thought they were very interesting. When I get into the list, you'll see kind of my adaptations from some of those comments and that feedback, and I'll explain kind of my choices and why. So as you can see just from what's in front of you, I've gone back to Wandering King Wildwind, because as it's a special summon, you can push a little bit further in some hands, and rather than trying to end on just simply one Supernova Dragon and hand traps or trap cards, for example, typically you can try and aim for the red Supernova Dragon plus something like Abyss, and there's some other cards that we are playing to facilitate that. So I'll get straight into the main deck. It's 40 cards, starting with our level 4s. We're playing the 3 Wandering King Wildwind and the 3 Witch of the Black Forest. So in a Red Dragon Archfiend deck, these are fairly self-explanatory. Which is awesome to search follow-up. It's a great normal summon, or alongside something like Red Resonator or Crimson Resonator to get your plays going. And then Wandering King Wildwind is similar, though the follow-up it provides is not as good, I would say. Wandering King Wildwind can banish itself to add a tuner, a Fiend type tuner with 1500 or less attack. You have no issue recycling tuners, so you can always end your turn with a number of Resonators back in hand, because Synchron Resonator isn't a hard once per turn, so Resonators is never the issue. It's the level 4 follow-up that is important. So typically, depending on what your hand is, if you know that you don't have a level 4 to play on the next turn, which will either be searching another copy of itself, or the Wandering King Wildwind as your follow-up. And if you've got follow-up, then you search a hand trap, which is good as well. The other monster I'm playing here is Ascada Dawnwalker. Now in a previous build, and the 1 fire and Ascada. Now in a previous build, I was playing Supe, the level 6 retrain that brings out the Supe from the deck. Ascada is better because it brings, we're already playing the level 4s, which is kind of what Supe does. It gives you instant access to a level 6. Ascada gives you instant access to the level 8, through 5 and 3 obviously, which is Chaos Ruler. Now Chaos Ruler in this deck is insane. Going first, it is your one of your main plays. Between it and Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, you're obviously always going to go for Chaos Ruler because it's actually going to give you value. It's recurable, which means you've got follow-up synchro plays for the next turn. And this being a 1-card Chaos Ruler without using a normal summon, you do have to discard, so not 1 card, but a free Chaos Ruler essentially is awesome. And it's when you see cards, when you see Fire and Ascada, or there's a Dawnwalker, sorry, that's usually when you're kind of adding an Abyss to your end board. It doesn't take much to get there with Ascada. Going to the Resonator portion of the deck, I don't think my ratios have really changed all that much. It's the 3 Crimson, the 3 Synchron. These are just the best 2 Resonators. Synchron's a free special summon if you control a Synchro, or if there's Synchro on the field, and then Crimson if you control no monsters, it's a special summon, plus the summoning Resonators from deck effect is insane. 2 Red Resonator. You could play 3 if you want to, but I don't know, I find 2 a little bit better. It's more just extra copies of Crimson, but without the added benefits that Crimson has. The last 2 is 1 Creation and 1 Chain. Typically you need a level 1 and a 3, so a 1, a 3 and a 2, plus your Red Rising Dragon gets you into the Supernova, so you do need to be playing a 1 and a 3. You don't want to play more than that. Chain's really great because if you normal summon it while a Synchro's on the field, you can special summon a Resonator from your deck. And typically you're recurring the Chain with Synchron Resonator, and it's just follow up for the next turn. And Creation, just being a free special summon if you control a face at level 8, can help. And again, you can add it back to hand for following plays if you want to, or if you haven't already added back Crimson. but they are the Resonators. The spells that we are playing are 3 Resonator Call and 1 Call by the Grave, and that is it for the. Oh, there's some spells a little bit later on, but these are the main ones that we are playing. Resonator Call, obviously, it's just not once per turn. You just add Resonators from deck to your hand. It's important to see Crimson Resonator because you really need to see that. And Call by is pretty self-explanatory. You really do want Red Rising resolving or Crimson Resonator resolving. So Call by is just an extra one that you can play. And I just needed a 40th card. It was either that or the 3rd Red Resonator, but obviously Call by is just a much better card. Getting into the trap cards, and I'm playing a few trap cards now. This first trap card that I am playing is something that you could definitely substitute for another hand trap, and I would probably recommend it. And that is the Synchro Call. So this was mentioned to me in the comments of my previous Red Dragon Archfiend video, and I really like it. Synchro Call, don't get me wrong, it's a good card, and Burning Soul as well is a good card. I've opted to play Synchro Call and no Burning Soul simply because Synchro Call is a normal trap card and it's going to pair really nicely with Trap Trick. Now, what I would do personally, taking this to a local environment, I would probably replace this with something like Ash Blossom. Obviously, Ash Blossom is just a very generic hand trap. It's great. Or just any other hand trap that you think is suitable to your local environment, but I would swap this out for Ash and leave the Trap Trick in because of our Red Rain, and we are also playing Infinite Impermanence. So the logic behind this is quite simply the fact that Synchro Call going second is a very bad card. You're really concentrating on breaking a board going second. You're going to do that if your opponent has a simplified board because you have so many buttons in your extra deck that just nuke boards. Most of the red drags, so for example, just getting Starlight out is going to threaten a lot. So if you can simplify the game with hand traps and your opponent ends on a subpar board, then your Red Dragon Archfiend can simplify the game state really easily, and you've got a lot of monsters in your extra deck that can do that. So Synchro Call should be Ash Blossom because only going first is this really relevant. Therefore, I would side deck the Synchro Call and definitely still play it because I think it's really good. But yeah, going first, it's really good because it's how you're going to cheat out King Calamity on your opponent's turn. But definitely side deck it. I've just left it in the main deck just to mention, but I would definitely play something like an Ash Blossom over the top of Synchro Call or some other hand trap that's maybe specifically light or dark, just because then you can add it back off Chaos Ruler. So if this was another hand trap, the Trap Trick's still going to have value through Imperm Red Rain. Going second, obviously it loses a little bit of value. The Imperm going second is great, the Red Rain's going second, but it's the Trap Trick going second. So now in your deck going second, Trap Trick's the only card that's really unfortunate to kind of have access to, but rather than having 5 cards that you don't really want to see. Red Rain is really awesome in this deck as a, well, I'm throwing it as a 2 of for now, because it is, if you foolish it off of Chaos Ruler, you can add it back. And you only really need 1 Red Rain in all honesty to play the game. So you could definitely cut a Red Rain if you wanted to. I've opted to play 2 just because seeing it in hand is great with something like the Dawnwalker because it discards a card. Or even something like Droplet, which can send cards. You're happy to have Red Rain in the graveyard because it is going to add itself back on any Synchro summon of a Dark Dragon Synchro. So having 2 is great. 2 works with Trap Trick, of course, and then Imperm works with Trap Trick as well. So yeah, Synchro Call side deck as a going first side option. Replace this with like Ash Blossom or Effect Veiler, Nibiru even. Nibiru specifically and Effect Veiler, they're both searchable by the Witch of the Black Forest, so they're great, and they're both lights, so they work with the Chaos Ruler. But that's the trap portion of the deck. This I would main deck, and Synchro Call I would side deck, and then that's going to give you then 12 hand traps. So I'll leave the imperm here just because this is part of our hand trap section, or disruptive going second card section. Skullmeister in this deck is really great, being a level 4, because it is a hand trap that can be normal summoned to go into Red Rising Dragon should you need to use it for that. So it just pairs with Witch of the Black Forest or Wild Wind. And then the last is Droplet. But of course, if you were to make your Synchro Calls a hand trap, you're now playing 12 hand traps. And 12 is a lovely number to be playing to really help simplify your opponent's board state and nuke their board with Red Dragon Archfiend. Droplet in particular is really good. I've opted for this over Dark Ruler. Dark Ruler is great as well if Scythe weren't a thing, but because you do have to be mindful of something like Scythe, Droplet obviously has a lot more utility alongside Imperm, because if you get Scythed, then you're not playing the game at all because your main deck monsters are tiny and you need to access your synchro plays. So Droplet and Imperm. Even Meister, all of these hit Scythe because the Meister stops the Scythe in the graveyard. And then Droplet negates a whole bunch of monsters, and then the Red Dragon Archfiend just comes in and nukes the board. So that's the main deck. It is 40 cards. Going to the extra deck, there's nothing too crazy in the extra deck. One King Calamity, obviously you're only going to be summoning this when you're siding to go first, if you can, if you've got that capability. Red Supernova Dragon, this is one of your best monsters. You could probably play it at 2 if you wanted to. Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend, just playing a bunch of options. 1 Bane, so these are both level 10 options. Playing 2 Abyss, just because it's very easy to summon. Playing 2 Archfiend, again, it's very easy to summon. 3 Red Rising Dragon, this is your main piece that gets your engine going first. Then playing 2 Chaos Ruler, because again, it's very easy to summon. And the last 2 spots are Beals and Void Ogre. In this deck, you could theoretically play something like Extravagance. If we're thinking about what the most important pieces are in the extra deck, it's the Chaos Ruler, the Red Rising Dragon. You don't really need the 2 here. So between these monsters, if you just, even the King Calamity is really not that essential. They're going first, it just wins games very handily. You could just increase the ratios here, go a 3rd Chaos Ruler, a 3rd Archfiend, and then maybe a 2nd of each of these, and you could definitely play Extravagance. Extravagance banishing Red Rising Dragon would definitely hurt, but definitely an option to increase consistency if you were having an issue with the consistency. Now I'll show you just some test hands and see what we can do. Okay, so getting ready for our first test hand. We'll see what we are able to do. We have an Imperm, Wild Wind, Skullmeister, Escada, and Trap Trick. So at the moment, we don't have a whole lot. The Escada is going to get us into our Chaos Dragon, so that's going to be our first play. We're going to be activating Escada, discarding probably the Skullmeister. Actually, we'll discard the Trap Trick, just because we might hit the trap card, and that's obviously what we need. So we'll summon out Escada. Escada will summon out the Fire Ant. And we will perform a Synchro Summon to Chaos Ruler. You don't really need your extra monster zone, so we can definitely throw monsters up there. We're going to Excavate 5. And that is extremely unfortunate, and it has definitely ruined this test hand, because now we have no plays. We obviously can't add back either of these, and yeah, so we're just losing the duel here. We have Meister and Imperm, but they're relatively low impact, not going to really stop too much from our opponent. So that happens. Because we are able to use the extra monster zone, cards like the Eagle Booster, Sky Striker, Eagle Booster, and even Engage to an extent can be played. Eagle Booster is good for ensuring that your extra monster resolves. It's just one of those cards that takes up space though, right? And we kind of do need our space for hand traps, because otherwise you're not going to compete if you're playing a weaker deck like this. So these is our second open hand. This is second opening hand. This is great. We love to see this. We have access into Chaos Ruler, plus this in itself is combo. It's up to you kind of what you opt to start with. I think we'll start with this, and reason being is this will get pieces out of the deck that we don't excavate with Ascada. So we'll Special Crimson, normal Witch, and Synchro Summon into Red Rising Dragon. And a mistake I think I made in my previous video, which is mandatory, so it's going to be 1 Red Rising, 2 targeting Crimson, it comes back, which is going to search, and we'll probably just search for Meister. I really like Meister as a target because it is follow-up, being a level 4, but it can also be used as a hand trap if we feel like it's going to be impactful in that moment. We'll activate Crimson Resonator. We've already got Creation in hand, so, and I'm almost certain it's got to be from, no, it can be from hand as well. Just thinking of our levels though, because Ascada is going to get us into the rank 8. So, and obviously the Creation's already special summonable. So what we'll do is we will summon from deck a Synchron Resonator, and should be able to summon 2. Yes, they don't have to be different names. We can summon the second Synchron. The other option you could summon is the Chain Resonator, just as another option that you can recur back with Synchron. But we're probably going to try and recur back our Crimson Resonator anyway in this instant. So we'll go for the second Synchron Resonator, because this is going to allow us to get into the Abyss as well as the Supernova. So what we'll do here is we will go, we'll Special Creation, and we will Synchro Summon using these, because it's 3 tuners plus a non-tuner dragon, a non-tuner Synchro, to summon Red Supernova Dragon. We're going to get 1 Synchron Resonator trigger here. We're going to add back Crimson. Then we're going to use Ascada. We can discard, we can discard the Crimson because it's going to come back. So yeah, why not we discard the Crimson? We can just add it back off Synchron anyway, and then we've got our play here. Ascada, of course, is going to summon the Fire Ant. And we can Synchro Summon again. This is going to go into our Chaos Ruler. And we're going to Excavate 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We obviously have to add the Synchron Resonator here. It's our only option. The rest is going to get milled. But hitting Red Rain there was awesome, because we're going to get it back. Now, something we can also be mindful of here is that we did have Trap Trick. Obviously, in this testing, we've still got the Synchro Call in the main deck. But we'll play it out. So what I'll do is we'll go to go into the King Calamity. It's 2 tuners specifically, so I actually don't think we can get there with an 8 and a 1 unless we Synchro Call. No, sorry, we can Synchro Call back the Creation. So what we'll actually do is we can just leave it there, just because we're still playing with Synchro Call in the main deck. So we'll leave it like that. We'll set the Trap Trick, and we can pass it here to our opponent. This could have obviously become Hot Red if we wanted it to be. That's an option that you can obviously choose to do. Another thing you can obviously do is if your opponent goes to Nibiru you can tag out the Supernova. It's not going to stick around during your opponent's turn, unfortunately, but you know, it is something that will come back if you don't die. But in today's day and age, you're probably dying. But we'd set it here. Going into our opponent's turn, we can trap trick. Obviously, we're going to banish a synchro call, set a synchro call, and we're going to use the synchro call. It's going to revive back Creation Resonator, and it's going to perform a synchro summon into King Calamity. And yep, so with our chain links, we can go, we can, yeah, so we've got our King Calamity, we've got Synchron Resonator to add back, and we have the Red Rain in our graveyard, which would just add itself back to our hand. So Synchron can add back the Crimson Resonator, we add back our Red Rain, and our opponent has now lost the game because they can't respond to King Calamity. And yeah, and we've got very big monsters on the field. So that's utilizing Synchro Call. It's not something that, like I said, I'd be main decking going into a game 1 situation, but definitely siding to go first, you could definitely do that. So that's a much better hand. And if we weren't playing Synchro Call, right, if that was a hand trap, obviously we could just trap trick for Imperm, and we could add back the Red Rain after we make the Abyss. So we would have ended on the Supernova, the Abyss, we had the Red Rain, we had the Imperm, so there's a lot of disruption anyway. Not turn ending like Calamity is, but still very good. We'll do one more, and hopefully it is playable. We have Call by the Grave, Droplet, Dawnwalker, Resonator Call, and Resonator Call. So a little bit sketchy. We can definitely get to Abyss with this pair here. So what we will do is we'll use a Resonator Call. We'll grab out a Crimson Resonator. We can use the other Resonator Call, and we'll get out the Synchron Resonator from deck. Grabbing Synchron just ensures that we get access to Abyss if the Dawnwalker hits nothing. So now we can use Dawnwalker. We're probably going to discard Droplet in this situation just because the called by is going to ensure that our plays resolve. Go Dawnwalker, summoning out the Fire Ant. And Synchro Summon. Okay, so Chaos Ruler effect. Okay, so this is lovely. We're going to grab Wild Wind here, and the rest is going to go graveyard. Unfortunately, we're not going to get any value off the trap card. None of that was Red Rain or anything like that, so we lose all those. The Chain Resonator is something we can add back off of Synchron Resonator. But what we can do now is we can normal summon the Crimson Resonator, and we'll use its effect. Now, thinking on what we want to summon here, this time we don't have access to King Calamity because we don't have Trap Trick, so, and obviously we're pretending that's not in the deck. So we're going to go for Supernova Dragon plus Abyss. Now we already have Abyss here. Wandering King Wildwind is going to be able to summon itself because we've got our Fiend Tuner. So we'll summon the materials necessary to go for that red Supernova Dragon, which of course is Creation and another Synchron Resonator, because our Chain Resonator is already in the graveyard. Now we can special the Wild Wind. We can synchro off into the red Rising Dragon. This will trigger its effect, and actually just thinking before we do that, let's jump back a step because we do get the recur. We're going to be able to trigger Synchron Resonator again, so we'll do Synchron and Chaos Ruler first into Abyss. We'll then trigger the Synchron Resonator to add back the Chain Resonator, being our only target. Now we can go into Red Rising. Red Rising will bring back the oh, sorry, no, we've got to bring back Crimson Resonator. What am I thinking? Bring back Crimson. Special Synchron. Sorry, I was in my head just then. That was, yeah, it didn't make sense to do it that way, but that's okay. It still all checks out. We can turn all of that into the Supernova. And trigger the Synchron again, load back Crimson, and call it a day. Now, with this hand, obviously we don't end, I can put that in defense mode. With this hand, having the call by was lovely. We don't end with a level 4 to follow up into another Red Rising Dragon on our opponent's on our next turn. But what we do have access to here is our Chaos Ruler. So Chaos Ruler is really handy as a recurable synchro monster. So if our board were to be outed, the Chaos Ruler is able to come back, and that's going to then at least provide us with some plays, because we've got our tuners in hand. We can use our tuner and our Chaos Ruler to go into some bigger things like our second Abyss, or we can push into something like Bane or Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend, because we also have follow-up in the form of the Wildwind. It can banish to add a Fiend tuner, as well as Red Rising. It can banish itself to target 2 level 1 Resonators, and we've got our 2 Synchron Resonators, which as well provide follow-up for more Resonators. But yeah, one of the big issues with the deck obviously is the fact that the Resonators are fairly readily accessible, but you are very reliant on keeping the Synchro monsters in rotation, which is where Chaos Ruler is really handy, because it's a recurable Synchro monster that you can use twice. But otherwise, that's going to be it for this one, and I hope you enjoy it.